So you want to learn how to sew. I am so excited for you because this is just going to make crafting your style that much easier. Hi, my name's Celeste and I'm the founder of an independent slow fashion label here in Melbourne where I make everything myself in-house, made to standard sizes or made to people's custom measurements. Now, I've been sewing since I was in high school, if not further on than that. And I've realized that I actually really enjoy the process of teaching people how to sew. I thought, what better way to start doing that than through here? In this series, I'm going to take you along every step of the way of how you can grow your knowledge and skills in the process of sewing. No matter if you've started already or you're a complete beginner not knowing what machine to get, what the tools are, everything like that. This first episode is going to be all about the equipment you need to get started. I'm not going to come at this from a professional standpoint, but from the perspective of someone who's just starting out and not quite sure if they know if they want to continue sewing or not. That way, you're not going to be spending your money on unnecessary things. The second episode will be all about your domestic sewing machine and how you can use all the basic controls and functions of it. And this will also include a few activities that you can do to practice your sewing skills. Episode 3 will be all about the kind of fabrics you may come across and what fabric will be best for your project, some common terminologies you may also hear when you're shopping for fabric. Episode 4 will be about understanding commercial patterns you'll come across, but also how you yourself can draft simple patterns and garment terminology you may come across when you're listening to tutorials or reading patterns. Finally, the 5th episode, I'll be taking you through how you can make your first ever product, which will be something very simple, just a tote bag. They'll really get you to understand all the basic skills you'll need. Okay, let's get started on your new journey. First, of course, we're going to be talking about the sewing machine. Now, if you're someone who really doesn't know if this is something you're going to stick to in the long run, I actually recommend you doing a one-day workshop just to see if you really enjoy the process, because some people do, some people don't. And then for some people, it can take a little while to appreciate the process of sewing. Or if not, see if one of your friends has a sewing machine and maybe you guys can do a sewing catch-up date or something like that so you can have a good understanding if you love the process, if you hate it. When you're starting out, you do not need to invest heavily in a machine. You can get one of the most basic machines out there and it will still accomplish all the garments you want to do. When you're searching for your perfect sewing machine, there are a few functions I definitely recommend for you to have access to on it, and that is a couple of straight stitches, zigzag stitches, a buttonhole. Those are a must in my opinion. The first tier, which is also the more affordable, are the machines that only have one dial really, that has a few selection of stitches for you to choose from. When you switch that dial, it then changes the setting of the needle placement and the stitch length to accommodate for that particular type of stitch. The second level of machinery are the ones that allow you to manually change your stitch length and your stitch width. So this also comes with the stitch dial or buttons that you can select from. You just have a bit more of that manual control for your project. Third ones are the really fancy ones with all the options available to you, some decorative stitches, a whole bunch of straight stitches, zigzag stitches, embroidery options. If you're not sure if you want to continue doing sewing, definitely don't go for this tiered option because it's not necessary for you to get started. You really only need the few options in the level 1 or level 2. A great machine option that's very simple for beginners would be the Singer Starter 1306 sewing machine. You can see that allows for you to do back stitching, which all machines do. It has the panel of stitches for you to select from, so 3 straight stitches, 2 zigzag, and a button, I believe. You also are allowed to change and shift the thread tension, which we'll get into at a later episode, but all machines also allow that as well. Of course, the machine also comes with a bit of bits and bobs like a bobbin, some foot options, and things like that. Your next machine option could be the Singer 4411 heavy duty sewing machine. This machine allows you to manually adjust the length and width of your stitch options, which is really great. In my opinion, something I like. But again, it's not a necessity if you're just getting started. You do also get a couple of foot options when you purchase the machine as well, and of course your bobbin and bobbin case. Now, this bad boy was the first sewing machine I was ever given by my grandma. It is classified within the first tier, the most simplest machine you can get. I don't think it's available though, but those machines I recommend at the start are a reflection of this machine. And of course, the last tier would include a machine like the Brother TY600C comp sewing machine, which is computerized, can be great. It depends what you're after. There's also going to be a lot more decorative features on it. This is similar to one of the sewing machines I have now. And just to let you know, these are all called domestic sewing machines. Now let's get into the rest of the equipment you'll need. I feel like sometimes you go on TikTok and things and you're seeing people sew and they have a whole bunch of tools and gadgets and things. And honestly, you don't need all those. Let's start with one of the most obvious things you'll need to get started, and that is a measuring tape. It's really good to have one of these long ones. They go up to 150 centimeters, I believe. Yep. And they also have inches on the other side if you prefer to work in those units. They're really good for molding around the body. You don't want one that's really stiff and plastically. You want it to be malleable so you can warp it like that so it gets really accurate readings around your curves. For your rulers as well, you're going to want just a standard ruler. That way it's easier for you to mark out your hems, and saying that you can also do that with a tape measure, it just may not be as accurate. Let's get into the scissors now because there's a few different types. The first one that you will 100% need are fabric scissors. So they look like this. The difference is the blade goes straight across. So when you're cutting it, it's important to have the blade on the surface of your table to then create accurate lines when you're cutting and following the pattern. You will also need normal paper scissors for cutting out patterns. Snippers. So these are really great for cutting threads off of your items, getting close to that seam and snipping them off. You can also use this for unpicking. However, there is another tool for that. It's called a seam ripper though. So you can easily go in between the seams and rip them open, but you do of course need to be careful with them because you can rip the fabric. Speaking from experience, and trust me, you'll have that experience too. Another option that's available when it comes to cutting fabrics are rotary cutters. Definitely not a necessity though. You really just need your fabric scissors. However, if you're someone who might struggle with some mobility with your wrists and hands, I would definitely recommend a rotary cutter. Speaking from experience, I struggle with using scissors sometimes, so I opt for the rotary cutter instead. If you're using a rotary cutter though, you also need a cutting mat, which just lies on your table so it protects it while you're cutting your fabric. Okay, so what are you going to use when it comes to putting your paper on the fabric so it doesn't move so you get the perfect cutout? Well, of course, you need pins. You can just get pins from anywhere. This is my stack of pins and it's on a metal board. You can just use a container though. You don't need anything fancy to be sticking your pins in. You can get shorter pins or longer pins. It's up to you. It also depends on the kind of fabric you're going to be using more consistently, I suppose. So if you're going for a lighter weight one, I would opt for smaller pins that are sharper. than, say, one of these longer ones, which would be good for heavy duty fabrics like linens and heavy cottons. You can also use clips if you're planning to do more bulkier projects. They are also perfect for lighter weight fabrics if you don't want to pin into them. Another option is for you to go to Bunnings or your local hardware store and purchase small weights so you can stack them up on your patterns and you don't have to worry about pinning things in, taking the pins out. It can be a quicker option, but you should also make sure your hand is stabilizing the fabric as you cut in the area. We'll get more into detail on that when we're going through a project though. Another thing I recommend is a bias tape maker. So this device allows you to run fabric through it and iron down the folds. That way it's easy to use when you're using it to finish off raw edges. If you couldn't tell when I was talking about the machinery, I didn't mention any serges or overlockers, which are machines that finish off raw edges, because when you're starting out, you really don't need that investment piece. That's something you can get later down the line. There are many different ways for you to finish off your edges that have a nice professional look without having the rough, raw edges showing through in an unprofessional, not neat way. And getting a bias tape maker allows you to do one of those options using the fabric you already have available. You can also just opt to buy bias tape at your local sewing supply store, but sometimes I find they don't work as well because they're a little bit stiff. Another tool you'll need are machine needles. I always recommend having a couple of packets of these available to you in case of the scenario of your needle snapping or breaking. It also wears down over time and that will impact the quality of your sewing. When you purchase needles, they're for different usages. So there's always a number at the bottom and that will tell you what kind of fabric it's used for. If you're going to be dealing with cottons majority of the time and linens, which I feel are kind of the starting point fabrics that people tend to go towards, I would really just recommend 90/14 for your universal machine, which is used for most domestic machines. That's what I typically use when I'm using those types of fabrics, unless they're very heavy or very light. Something that you'll need that I think is a bit underrated and overlooked at is a safety pin. Hopefully one bigger than this one. It can help you turn through straps or anything that really needs to be turned over. It's a great and affordable way to achieve that. Alternatively, you can always go buy I honestly don't know what these are actually called, but you hook them through your spaghetti strap. You hook the fabric on and you pull the fabric through so the fabric turns out the right way. Very handy, but seriously, you can just go for the safety pin. I will have a list of places you can buy these pieces of equipment from. Some will be local to my area that I personally support. I always prefer supporting local businesses since I also am one, but I will also include Amazon listings as well, so you can shop that way if it's easier, if you live somewhere else, maybe it's more convenient for you. I'm very excited. This is going to be a really great journey. Let me know if you have any questions at all, and I will make sure to answer them or include it in one of the future videos. I hope this really helped you, and I cannot wait for next week. I'm really excited about